Hello. Welcome to Freedom in Humanity. Please subscribe to my channel after watching the video. This video is the 25th part of Prophets of God. The video is about the prophet of God named Muhammad and the second part. Please stay with us until the end of this video. Conflict with Jews. The first clashes with the Jews took place a few weeks after the Battle of Badr. The Jews lived in castles outside Medina and worked as goldsmiths and blacksmiths. They wrote that one day an Arab woman went to the market and sold her goods in the market and sat in a jewelry store. One of the Jews tied his clothes around his back, because the woman got up and her clothes went to one side, and the Jews laughed at first. The woman called on the Muslims for help. A Muslim killed a Jewish man with the help of that woman. The Jews were upset and killed the Muslim. After this incident, the Prophet told the Jews that if they wanted to stay here, they had to surrender. The Jews said that the defeat of the people of Mecca did not deceive you, they were not men of war. If we fight you, we will show you what we are. The Prophet besieged them and their siege lasted for 15 days and nights, and when they surrendered, Abdullah, the son of Abi, insisted and the Prophet died, killing them and exiled them to Sham. The siege of this group of Jews in the month of Shawwal was the second year of the migration. Uhud War. In the third year of the Quraysh sought the help of their allied tribes against the Muslims and marched on Medina with an army equipped under the command of Abu Sufyan. The Prophet first intended to stay in Medina, but eventually decided to leave the city to confront the pagan army of Mecca. Somewhere near Mount Uhud, two armies faced each other, and although the first victory was over the Muslims, but with the trick used by Khalid, son of Walid, and using the negligence of a group of Muslims, the polytheists attacked from behind and killed the Muslims. In this battle, Hamza, the son of Abdul Muttalib, the Prophet's uncle, was martyred. The Prophet also received a wound, and the rumor that he was killed weakened the morale of the Muslims. The Wars of Bani Nadir, the second of Jundal. In the year 4 there were several sporadic clashes with the tribes around Medina, who did not see the religion of Islam in their favor and may have united and invaded Medina. The two incidents of Rajai and Bir Muna, in which Muslim missionaries were killed by fighters of the United Tribes, show this unity and the Prophet's efforts to spread Islam in Medina. In this year, the Prophet negotiated with Bani Nadir, a group of Jews from Medina, and the Jews tried to kill him, but they were eventually forced to leave the area. In the 5th year of the Prophet and the Muslims went to the borders of the Levant in a place called Duma al-Jandal. When the Islamic army arrived, the enemy had fled and the Prophet and the Muslims returned to Medina. Ghazwa Khandaq, Ghazwa Bani Qurayza, and Ghazwa Bani Muzalak. In the 5th year of Abu Sufyan provided an army of between 7,000 and 10,000 men, 600 of whom were cavalry. Because the IRGC was made up of different Arab tribes, this war was called the War of the Parties. In addition, in this war, a group of Bani Nadir Jews living in Khyber allied with the Quraysh and the Ghatfan tribe against the Prophet. The Jews of Bani Qurayza, who lived around Medina and pledged not to help the Quraysh, also broke the treaty and collaborated with the people of Mecca. In contrast, the Prophet had only 3,000 troops, all but a few of whom were infantry. The people of Medina stayed in the city in this war, unlike the Battle of Uhud, and took a defensive position. At Salman Farsi's suggestion, they dug a trench to protect the city. Medina was protected on 3 sides by a grove and a building. By digging a moat in the north, that side is also protected from the onslaught of enemy cavalry. The moat was finished before the Meccan army arrived in Medina. When the enemy got there, he was surprised, because he had not seen such an obstacle to advance the war until that day. The riders could not cross the ditch and the snipers did not give them a chance as they approached. Amr, the son of Abdud, who was a famous brave man, was killed by Ali after crossing the ditch. Several Muslims contacted Bani Qurayza and Ghatfan and made the two pessimistic about each other. The wind and cold also hit and it became difficult for the troops of Mecca. Hence, Abu Sufyan ordered his return and Medina ended the war after 15 days of siege. After this war, the course of work changed in favor of the Muslims. Some primitive Arabs converted to Islam and the position of Abu Sufyan and Quraysh was shaken. After the end of the Battle of the Parties, the Prophet went to the Jews of Bani Qurayza. According to the Treaty of Medina, they were safe as long as they did not revolt against the Muslims, but they united in the War of the Parties with the enemies of Islam. The Prophet besieged them and they surrendered after 25 nights. The Aws tribe, who had made a pact with the Bani Qurayza, said to the Prophet, "The Bani Qurayza are our allies and they have regretted their work, treat them like Hazraj allies." The Prophet left the judgment of the captives of Bani Qurayza to Sad son of Muadh, the chief of the tribe. Bani Qurayza also agreed. Saad said, "My opinion is that their men should be killed and their wives and children should be taken prisoner." According to Saad's judgment, the ditches were dug and the men beheaded Bani Qurayza next to the ditch. Some historians disagree on this story. Khyber War. In the 7th year of Ad, the Prophet defeated the Jews of Khyber, who had already allied themselves with his enemies several times. The fortress of Khyber, located near Medina, was captured by the Muslims, and the Prophet agreed that the Jews should continue their farming in that area and pay a portion of their produce to the Muslims every year. In the Battle of Khyber, the task of conquering one of the forts became difficult and the messenger of God sent Abu Bakr and Umar to conquer it, respectively, but they were unable to do so. Then he gave the flag to Ali and he conquered it. Peace of Hudaybiyah and Allegiance of Revan. The Battle of the Parties, the surrender of the Jews of Bani Qurayza and the 2 or 3 wars that took place in the 6th year of Ad and ended in favor of the Muslims, and the spoils of war they won, increased the power of Islam in the eyes of the inhabitants of the peninsula, as many tribes they allied with the Muslims. In Di al-Qaeda in the 6th year of Ad, the Holy Prophet left for Mecca with 1,500 people from Medina to perform Umrah. When the Quraysh became aware of the Prophet's intention, they prepared to stop him. First, Khalid and Ikrimah were sent to prevent him from reaching Mecca. The Prophet landed in a place called Hudaybiyah, which is the beginning of the sanctuary lands, and sent a message to the people of Mecca that we have come for pilgrimage, not for war. The Quraysh did not accept. Finally, a peace treaty was signed between him and the representative of the people of Mecca, according to which there will be no war between the two sides for 10 years. This year, Muslims should not enter Mecca, but next year, at this time, the people of the city will leave Mecca for 3 days and leave the city for Muslims to visit. Another article of the treaty was that anyone from the people of Mecca who came to Muhammad should be returned to Mecca, but if someone went to Mecca from Medina, the Quraysh would not have to return him. Another article of the treaty was that every tribe is free to be in the Quraysh treaty or in the Muhammad treaty. Later, the Quraysh, by not observing this condition, caused the conquest of Mecca. Pilgrimage to the house of God. In Dhul-Qa'dah in the 7th year of due to the peace of Hudaybiyah, the Prophet left for Mecca. The arrival of the Prophet and the Muslims in the sacred mosque and the performance of Umrah, the glory of the ceremony and the respect that the Muslims paid to their Prophet, appeared to the Quraysh, and it almost became clear to them that they no longer had the strength to confront Muhammad. For this reason, 2 of the elders of that gens, Khalid and Amr, reached Medina and became Muslims. The universal invitation of Islam. After the peace of Hudaybiyah, the Prophet, who was somewhat relieved of the aggression of the Quraysh, decided in the 7th year of to invite the rulers and kings of the surrounding countries. He then sent letters to the emperors of Eastern Rome, Iran, Najashi, as well as Emir Ghassanian Sham and Emir Yamaman. Conquest of Mecca. The Treaty of Hudaybiyah stipulated that any tribe could make a pact with either the Quraysh or the Muslims. Huzah became the Treaty of Muhammad and Ibn Bakr became the Treaty of the Quraysh. In the 8th year, a conflict broke out between Bakr and Huzah, and the Quraysh helped Banu Bakr against Huzah. Thus, the Treaty of Hudaybiyah was broken because the Quraysh went to war against the allies of the Prophet. Abu Sufyan, realizing that this arrogance would not go unpunished, went to Medina, perhaps renewing the treaty, but to no avail. The Prophet left for Mecca in the month of Ramadan in the year 8 with 10,000 people. And he arranged the movement so that no one would know about his trip. When the army reached Mar al-Garan, Abbas, the Prophet's uncle, left the tent at night and asked one of the people of Mecca to see him and send a message through him that the Quraysh should reach the Prophet before they perished. That night he met Abu Sufyan and sheltered him and brought him to the Prophet. Abu Sufyan became a Muslim. The next day, the Prophet ordered Abbas to keep him in a safe place so that the army could pass in front of him. When Abu Sufyan saw the greatness of the Muslims, he said to Abbas, "The kingdom of your brother's son has grown." Abbas said, "Woe to you, this is a prophet, not a kingdom." He said, "Yes, it is." Abbas said to the Prophet, "Abu Sufyan is a man who wants to have a privilege." The prophet said, "Whoever goes home and closes the door on himself is safe. Anyone who takes refuge in Abu Sufyan's house is safe. Anyone who goes to the sacred mosque is safe." A large army entered Mecca slowly. Hisham's son narrates from Ishaq's son that Sad, the chief of the Hazraj tribe, when he came to Mecca, said, "Today is the day of slaughter. Today is the day of the breaking of sanctity." Sad thought that he wanted to take revenge on the Quraysh or the Adnani clan, and take Yathrib and his people from the Quraysh and Mecca. In order for this illusion not to take place in the minds of Muslims and not to attribute the Islamic conquest to the hatred of the tribe, the Prophet sent Ali and said to him, "Take the flag from Sad, which today is the day of mercy." There were only a few brief clashes between the Muslims and the people of Mecca. The Prophet entered the mosque, and as he was riding, he circumambulated the Kaaba 7 times and stood at the door of the Kaaba and said, "There is no God but God, He has no partner, He has fulfilled His promise, He has helped His servant, and He alone has triumphed over the parties." The people rejected every claim except serving the Kaaba and watering the pilgrims. The Prophet stayed in Mecca for 2 weeks and took care of the affairs of the city. Among other things, he sent people around Mecca to destroy the idols and broke the idols that were placed in the house of the Kaaba. The treatment of the Prophet by the people of Mecca revealed the sincerity of Islam and the greatness of the Prophet in the eyes of the opposition. The Quraysh, who had not refrained from persecuting Muhammad and his followers for 20 years, were afraid of punishment, and when they heard him say in response, "I have set you all free," from that day on, instead of fighting Islam, they decided to fight non-Muslims in the name of Islam. Events after the conquest of Mecca. Ghazwa Hunayn. Less than 15 days after the Prophet's stay in Mecca, some of the numerous non-Muslim tribes of the Arabian Peninsula united against it. The Prophet, peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, came out of Mecca with a large army of Muslims, and when he reached a man named Hunan, the enemies who were lurking in the surrounding valleys started firing. The intensity of the shooting was such that the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps retreated, leaving a small group, but eventually the fugitives returned and attacked the enemy army and defeated them. Ghazwa Tabuk. In the 9th year of the Hijrah, the Prophet was informed that the Romans had prepared a large army in Balka and wanted to attack the Muslims. It was a hot summer and the fruits were ripe, and people wanted to be comfortable in their homes. There was not much money in the treasury either. The Prophet's habit was not to set a goal in the campaign, but in the Battle of Tabuk, due to the difficulties ahead, he announced that we would go to war with the Romans. Some people said, "It is hot season, do not go in this season." This group is as rebuked by this verse, and they said, "Do not migrate in the heat." Say the heat of hell is harder if they knew. The number of Islamic troops in this campaign has been written as 30,000. And this is the highest number of divisions in Islamic wars and the highest number of IRGC gathering in Saudi Arabia to date. In this campaign, he placed the Prophet Ali in Medina to take care of his house. The hypocrite said that he did not want Ali to be with him on this journey, and when Ali complained to the Prophet about this, he said, I have made you my caliph, for you are like Aaron to Moses, except that there is no prophet after me. The army was thirsty, and when they reached Tabuk, it turned out that the news of the Romans' readiness was not true. The Battle of Tabuk was the last conflict between Muslims and non-Muslims in the life of the Prophet. From then on, he surrendered all over Saudi Arabia. It was after this war that representatives from each tribe came to the Prophet to express the obedience of their tribes and to accept Islam, and it can be said that almost all the tribes became Muslims. Year of delegations. After the conquest of Mecca, many delegations came to Medina on behalf of different tribes and declared Islam and obedience, and the Prophet accepted them with kindness, love, and attention. Hence, this year became known as the Sunnah of al-Wafud, the year of the delegations. Mu'tazila. In the 9th year of Ad, the Prophet of Islam wrote a letter to the Bishop of Najran, simultaneously with the heads of the governments of the world, asking the inhabitants of Najran to accept Islam. The Christians decided to send a group to Medina to speak to the Prophet and study his words. The delegation spoke with the Prophet of Islam at the Medina Mosque. After the insistence of the two sides on the legitimacy of their opinions, it was decided that the issue should be settled through controversy, so it was decided that the next day, all outside the city of Medina, they would prepare for the controversy at the edge of the desert. On the morning of the day of Mu'tazila, the Prophet came to the house of Amir al-Mu'minin Ali. He took Imam Hassan by the hand and embraced Imam Hussein, and left Medina with Ali and Fatima for Mubahala. When the Christians saw them, they refused to compromise and asked for reconciliation. The last Hajj of the Prophet. The Prophet left for his last Hajj in Dhul-Qa'dah in the 10th year of Ad. It was during this trip that he taught the rules of Hajj to the people. The Quraysh had made concessions for themselves before Islam. Apart from locking and unveiling the house and entertaining and watering the pilgrims, he also considered himself separate from other tribes in the rites of pilgrimage. In this journey, the Prophet destroyed what the Quraysh considered a privilege for themselves in the pilgrimage to the house of God and deprived others of it. One of these advantages was that in the pre-Islamic period, people thought that the tawaf of the house should be clean and the clothes are clean when taken from the Quraysh. If the Quraysh did not give the clothes of tawaf to anyone, he should perform tawaf naked. The other is that the Quraysh, like the pilgrims, did not leave Arafat, but migrated from Muzdalifah and considered this privilege to be their pride. The Quran abolishes this privilege with this verse, migrate from where people migrate. And the people saw that Muhammad, who was himself a Quraysh, was migrating from Arafat with other people. It was during this trip that he said, "People, I do not know if I will see next year or not. People, I trample on any bloodshed in ignorance. Your blood and property are forbidden to each other until you meet God." The story of Ghadir Qum. On his return to Medina at the house of Juhayfa, where the roads of the people of Egypt, Hejaz, and Iraq are separated, in a place known as Gadir-Kum, God commanded him that you should appoint Ali as your successor, and in other words the fate of the Islamic government must be clarified more clearly. The Messenger of God, in the presence of Muslims, whose number is between 90 or 100,000, declared, I have guardianship over everyone. Ali is his master. God, join the one who joins first and make an enemy of the one who has an enemy. And love the one who loves him. And be the enemy of the one with whom the enemy is, and humiliate the one who humiliates him and turn the truth with him wherever he goes. The one who is willing to convey these words to the one who is absent. Osama Kaur. After returning from the Hajj, while the strength and glory of Islam was increasing, the health of the Prophet was endangered, but despite his illness, he prepared an army to retaliate against Motay under the command of Osama. But before this army went on a mission, the Prophet went to visit his Lord. And when he went to meet God, he established Islamic unity throughout the Arabian Peninsula and brought Islam against the two great empires of Iran and Rome. Death. At the beginning of the lunar year 11, the Prophet fell ill. When his illness became severe, he went to the pulpit and ordered the Muslims to be kind to each other and said, if someone's right on me is to take it, or make it lawful, and if I have hurt someone, now I am ready for revenge. Speech. In the last days of the Prophet's life, while a group of companions were visiting him, he said, bring a pen and paper so that I can write something for you so that you will never go astray. One of those present said, the disease has overcome the Prophet and he is delusional and we have the Quran and that is enough for us. There was a commotion among the attendees. Some said, bring him to write, and some said other than that. The Messenger of God said, arise and leave me. The person who opposed the words of the Prophet has been introduced as the son of Khattab. Abbas's son constantly regrets this incident and considers it a great tragedy. The death of the Prophet occurred on the 28th of Safar in the 11th lunar year, or according to a narration on the 12th of Rabi al-Awwal in the same year at the age of 63. At the time of his death, the Prophet's head was between Imam Ali's chest and neck. At that time, none of her children were alive except Fatima. His other children, including Abraham, who was born a year or two before the Prophet's death, all died. Ali, with the help of several other members of his family, bathed and covered the holy body of the Prophet and was buried in his house, which is now inside the Prophet's mosque. Thank you dear friends for watching this video. Please subscribe to this channel. Try to be a good person and with God.